And we are live. How's it going, my friend? Stu, you're off in a different place here. This isn't quite normal.
Yeah, I'm not off in the Esses this weekend. I am off in the Indy.
Off in
I
the
think you could say
Airbnb.
off in the Airbnb indeed. Um, yeah, soaking up the best that fine Indianapolis has to offer, and today that was sunshine, so it was a good day.
Enjoy it while you can, I suppose. Um,
Yeah, true. Might not
yeah,
last long.
kick off with that. I want to get some of your first impressions. This was your first time, to my
It
belief,
is.
attending
Yep.
the trademarked. I think it is greatest race course in the world. Of course, I've been there twice. I've actually been there three times. One time was not for any racing event at all. Long time ago, back in 2016. But two other times for the Indy 500. Haven't seen any road course running there, but wanted to get some of your first impressions going there, of course, for this weekend's tire rack battle on the bricks.
Yeah, it's the only thing that I think I could really compare like the feeling when you kind of walk onto the facility to was the feeling when I went to Daytona for the first time. You kind of roll up on Indy, and it's not as big as Daytona is in terms of you know the huge grandstands in Daytona are incredible, but you know coming up and seeing the track, and again I keep saying that I'm not I'm a casual IndyCar fan,
Sure.
but understanding the history that this place has, and you roll up on it and you feel that history, and you go through one of the tunnels to the infield for the first time, and it really does feel the only time I've had a feeling kind of comparable to it is rolling into Daytona, and just that sort of awe. You're just in awe when you roll in. So that was really cool to experience that. Going to the museum yesterday as well was really neat. Just the cars from different motorsport disciplines that have competed at Indy, and all of the items that they have in that museum was incredible. So that was really cool to see, and they actually have one of the old Penske the spiders
My favorite
from.
car of all time.
Yep. So
Actually, hang on. This could go poorly, but we're gonna for the visual people here on video. Let's see if we can.
oh man, he's even got the shirt on. There you go.
Almost tripped on the landing, but there we go.
You stuck the landing. Stuck the
Yeah.
landing. So yeah, it's been really cool to kind of experience some of that history, and walking, just being able to go out on track today, and see the start finish line in person, and like touch the bricks, and just a really really cool facility. Like I get it now. I get it. I get it.
He got that Indy fever, I suppose.
I got the Indy fever for sure, and I was thinking that the whole time, kind of today at the track, looking around, and I can't help but think what it would be like with 350,000 people in there,
Oh, it's
or
nuts.
like a packed house. It would be utterly insane. So definitely have to make it back for the Indy 500 someday, and experience that, because seeing how the area embraces IMSA, which is definitely not gonna touch the crowd that the Indy 500 gets, or the excitement that the Indy 500 gets, but just seeing how everybody's embraced it, I can't imagine what it'd be like for the 500.
Yeah, and of course, not only the events going on track this weekend, we're actually a half hour late on this episode tonight because you just came out of the event that they've got going on downtown, the little pop up event on Main Street. Some of the cars out on the downtown streets that I've walked up and down quite a few times at my time there, but not with
Yep.
any of the WeatherTech championship cars there. Give me a quick rundown about the vibe there. A lot of people in attendance for that
Yeah.
event tonight.
Yeah, I was saying to some people there, I've been fortunate enough to go to a decent number of these at various races, over the past few years, and it really impressed me with the turnout that there was. The streets were packed. They had a couple pit stop demonstrations that were going, as they usually do in these sort of street fests, and there was a huge crowd. It was kind of like how it is when they have the pit stop demonstrations on pit lane. Like, you can't really walk in that area during that time. So, everybody was, it was really cool. A bunch of families out too, which was really good to see, the kids walking around with like their Rexy stickers. I'm sure AO Racing is going to put this on their social media if they don't have it already, but there was a kid that had like their little, their like your little battery powered Jeep or whatever when you're a kid, but they had it all decked out as like a Rexy. So it was really cool to see. Really good atmosphere. And I think tomorrow's the first day that fans are allowed in. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the fan turnout's going to be. And and it's a ton of really knowledgeable racing fans that are here. That much is very, very obvious. So I think it's going to be a really good weekend.
Yeah, well, of course, looking forward to your coverage coming out of that race over on your channel. And this being the last 6-hour race we have at Indy for IMSA, we'll be covering that, previewing it a lot more at the end of the episode. And of course, giving our thoughts on the race itself next week. I see you're standing room only over there. So now I get to play the game of how long do we make this episode? I can sort of torture you here.
I'm actually sitting, but I'm sitting on one of these like really bad.
Comfy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not very comfy. I've been sitting on it to like do some editing and stuff as well. So, and the bed's not very comfy either. So I'm just going to complain.
I have been, because when I was doing the episode in France from that Airbnb, I was up on a bar stool. So I sort of know the feeling.
Maybe we'll become part of the Barstool Podcast Network, and we can make it a whole.
They got a market for IMSA. We'll see.
Hey, we could be their in.
I do want to spend the first part of this episode at least, give it a quick rundown. Not a quick rundown. This is probably going to go longer than we want it to. Of the 2026 silly season. A lot of talk's been going on around the motorsports news sphere over the past few months now about silly season and IndyCar and Formula One really being a huge talking point this year. Of course, F1, you have a new team / manufacturer coming in next year with Cadillac. You've got Audi. IndyCar has a wide shuffling of drivers going around. Just got David Malukas announced over to Penske today. Made me realize that we haven't quite seen as much sports car stuff in the mainstream, but that doesn't mean that there's any shortage of it. So what I wanted to do today, get some of our thoughts down, get some of the confirmed changes that we have heard already, some of the things that we're expecting will be confirmed, maybe throw in some complete darts that we're just going to toss on the board as well. It probably won't be the only time we do one of these. I'm sure as we hear more things in the coming weeks and months, we'll be discussing this in more detail. Wanted to talk about both championships, though. Starting off with IMSA, of course, sort of hot on the presses right now. We might be hearing some things over the next few days with this weekend going on right now. With Acura, we actually just got confirmation this week. They will be returning next year with Meyer Shank Racing, 2-car program. Same as we've seen this year with Car 60 and 93. I don't really know if there is any doubt about that program returning for next year. But nonetheless,
if that returning, then it's kind of like Acura's shutting down the program.
Right. Nonetheless, great to get that confirmation. That was actually the first confirmation we had received, a formal confirmation, I should say, for 2026 in the GTP class.
Yeah, again, I like you said, I don't think anybody was expecting this to go away, but yeah, always nice when the higher ups actually formalize something, right? And we don't have to wait until the last second to get certainty
on that. Put the pen on paper, sign the deal.
Looking at you, Porsche.
Oof, we'll be talking about them a little bit here. Let's keep with the good for now. Aston Martin, expecting, at least I'm personally expecting one Valkyrie to return. Haven't heard anything to the contrary. I was curious if there's a potential for that program to get bumped up to 2 cars. I don't really see an avenue for that to happen for next year. I haven't heard any discussion that would make that possible. We haven't heard any drivers that could potentially get signed to that program. Of course, they also have a 2-car program over in the WEC as well. Personally, I'm seeing that one Aston Valkyrie sticking around with that Cosworth V12 for its first technical full season outing in IMSA.
Yeah, I don't think that's going anywhere.
Over on to talk about some changes though. BMW, we've talked about them in the past. Of course, Ray Hall, Letterman, and Lanigan leaving that program at the end of this season. They'll be trying to go back to back this weekend at Indy.
Back to back
in the championship as well. But we'll be seeing a 2-car program. This is fully expected, not officially confirmed, but like expect it. WRT will be running that program in both the WEC and IMSA next year. There was some uncertainty about whether or not we would be seeing that program full time in IMSA next year, or whether it would only be endurance races. There's some question about whether it'd be 1 car or 2. All things right now point to a 2-car full season program in both championships, which fantastic to hear. WRT don't need to talk at all about the pedigree they have. And I think that program is going to be very strong next year.
Yeah, BMW confirms for sure that it's full season. They put to bed any of those rumors. I can't remember if it was I think it was last week. There were some comments from there. I don't remember who their head is, but yeah, he said
Vincent. Well, is it BMW or WRT?
It was BMW.
Okay.
Yeah, because WRT hasn't been confirmed yet. So
right.
Yeah.
For Cadillac, haven't really heard a whole lot about Cadillac.
No.
For better or for worse, but I'm expecting we'll be seeing the same thing we have this year with the 2 Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillacs, and of course Action Express in the 31 car.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure that the Wayne Taylor Racing agreement was multi-year. So, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And then Porsche, having a little bit of fun with this one. The only manufacturer I guess we can say is uncertain right now. We had heard previously that they were committing to at least the end of the 2026 season in both the WEC and IMSA. Recent reports indicate that might not be true. We'll probably be hearing something about that formally. My guess would be before the Fuji round of the WEC, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks here. The good news, if you are an IMSA fan, is it does sound like that program is more likely of the 2 to stick around with that Penske program. Talk a little bit more about what that would mean for the World Endurance Championship once we get to that section. The other question, of course, being of the privateers. Right now we have JDC running a full-time entry, and Proton has also been running up to this point a Michelin Endurance Cup 963. Of course, they will not be in attendance, though, at Indy and possibly Road Atlanta as well. I've sort of heard mixed things about that, but everything I've heard recently indicates we probably won't see that Proton 963 at Petit Le Mans as well. Not really sure where that leaves that program for next year. If I had to make a guess right now, I think you're going to see one JDC car full-time next year. I don't really think they're going to be doubling up on that. It was actually rumored going into this season that they might be looking to double up that program. I haven't really seen anything to that story since. And the last question, really, that a lot of people might have their eyes on is the possibility of an AO Racing 963. I know that was discussed a lot more in the earlier summer. Right now, I think that seems unlikely. We haven't really seen a whole lot of steam from that discussion, and I think they're going to be sticking around with a GTD Pro program for next year, along with potentially the program that they have over in LMP2. But as for a 963, I don't really see that one, at least right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's just becoming more and more apparent to me is that like the customer aspect of these top class, it doesn't really seem like, I mean, I guess it's got to be revolving around financial, of course. It always comes down to money. But it just seems like, there's not the maybe the customer base that is willing to go out there and fork over a ton of money to run these customer cars. I mean, we have what? I mean, there's the one Proton Porsche that's a true customer effort in WEC, and
Yep.
that's the only one. And then you have JDC here, so you have two customer entries in the world, which is a little bit disappointing. I think we probably all thought that at the beginning of this we might see a few more customer entries, but that's if the money doesn't work, the money doesn't work, and what regardless of what Proton's ultimate reasoning was behind it. There's actually 0 Proton cars on the grid this weekend in IMSA, with the Iron Dames also not present. So, been a while since we've had a Michelin Endurance Cup event with no Proton present.
Yeah, it's actually a good point you brought up there. I can't even really think of the last time we haven't seen them in any capacity in IMSA for an endurance race. The other thing I'm thinking about right now is what do customer entries look like over in the Asian Le Mans series once we get those hypercars on the ground. Maybe that's a direction that a team like Proton decides to take as well. I think there's a lot of unknowns with Proton right now. They've been thrown around with a potential Ford hypercar program, whether that's customer or factory. A lot of uncertainty, though. Right now, like I said, I'm really only expecting to see that one JDC 963 on the grid next year in terms of customer entries. But we'll see. I would like to be wrong.
You know who we could see in the Asian Le Mans series?
Who's that?
Lamborghini.
No. Moving on to P2. I'm going to shut you down. No, it's not. LMP2. A couple of actual interesting stories that we've gotten over the past couple of weeks, which I guess is a good opportunity for me to bring up. It's been a few weeks since we've had a show. Meant to do one last week. Of course, you were busy. And so that sort of threw the CODA recap out the door a little bit. We could have snuck it into this episode, but it's 2 weeks past at this point, and I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this instead.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But the LMP2 stories that we have heard about over the past couple of weeks, one of them that was a big surprise to me, and sort of harken back to the era that's on the back of my shirt here, is the return of Intersport Racing with the number 37 Orica 07. Of course, that entry, if you were a fan of the American Le Mans series back in the 07-08 era, had the infamous John Field driving the car. With a Lola, the AER Turbo Lola that was monstrously fast on the straightaways and was passing Audi R10s at tracks like Miller Motorsports Park. A lot of fun to be seen with that entry back in those days. Here we'll be seeing them in a lot more of a subdued position, I think is fair to say, in the LMP2 class, but still up against very heavy competition. And they're partnering with HMD Motorsports for that entry as well, which is the team, if you're familiar with the Indy Next Championship, that name will sound familiar. So expecting that program to be a full season program next year with John Field participating in there. Interesting note about John, he actually was present this year at the Rolex 24, racing in the Inter-Europol competition Orca, but I don't believe we've seen him on track in IMSA since. So nice to see him rebound, bring his own team back to the game, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see that car and driver combo on track next year, I think.
That it is, and good to see, some, I guess it's not new blood being injected into LMP2, but another entry, another fresh entry coming into that class is, it's good to see that it's staying, the LMP2 is staying healthy in IMSA.
Yeah, and sort of adding on to that health, we're also seeing a very familiar name in the IMSA space in Brian Herta Autosport. They're going to be jumping up to the LMP2 ranks for next season. We're seeing them team up with PR1 Mathiasen, of course, already a very strong team in the WeatherTech Championship with that car 52. That program is going to be run out of the new Brian Herta Autosport shop in Indy. We talked about this program a little bit in either the last episode or the one before it. Um, the writing is sort of on the wall a little bit for what this might be a lead up to. But nonetheless, very excited to see what Brian Hurd Autosport can do in a prototype position for the first time ever, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Because their intro to sports cars, just TCRs, I think.
Guess it would have been. I mean, Brian
Yeah.
Hurd himself raced in the Acura ARX LMP2 back in the days of the RS Spider, the era I keep talking about. This is like the fourth time I've brought it up this episode. But yeah, for the team, this would be their
Yeah.
first foray.
Maybe this is just a giant throwback episode. It all comes full circle.
I'm just mad that you saw the RS Spider. That's it.
Yeah.
Any opportunity I can get to go out there, I'll take it. But we'll see.
It is beautiful.
It's a great car.
Maybe
Maybe
Penske goes back to P2, right?
Potentially. We'll see.
Yeah, true.
Potentially another manufacturer on the horizon for them as well, maybe. But sticking with the tune of P2, any other comments from you? I think a lot of the other entries, this class is very difficult to predict. Some of these entries join mid-season, some of them leave mid-season. So probably of all the classes we're going to talk about, maybe tied with GTD, the most difficult one to predict a full season picture for, and I think we're really just going to have to wait until later on in the year to get a clear picture of that.
Yeah, I mean these entries, you see the bronze drivers in these cars come and go. Like sometimes they only last like a couple of races before there's new drivers being swapped in and out. But one of the ones that I have a real question mark around is Riley Motorsports and the future of that 74. Gar Robinson has, of course, confirmed that he's going to be stepping back from sports car racing at the end of this season and doing some more focus on off-road racing. And Gar is, of course, the bronze driver in that car. Brings the funding for it, and with that, I think one of the best LMP2, you could just say prototype drivers in general that hasn't been really given a crack in one of the LMDHs has been his pro counterpart in that car for the past few years in Felipe Fraga. So I know Felipe does driving in was it Brazilian stock cars, I believe. So he has some other racing interests, but depending on what the future of the Riley LMP2 program is, if that continues, be interested to see where Fraga might land, because he could be a very nice underrated grab for, if it's whether that's an LMDH or a GTP entry or if it's just another P2 team that wants to pick him up. But I'd be keeping my eyes on the 74 and see if there's any news about that comes out here as we quickly approach the off season.
Yeah. Someone in the chat just asking, can somebody explain what's going on? We're making our best shot at trying to explain the silly season info that we have in IMSA and the WEC. So we're only just getting started here. GTD Pro, I think this one's a little bit interesting, although I don't think there's going to be a ton of changes. The only confirmation we have, again, formal confirmation, is that we'll be seeing both Multimatic Run Mustangs return for next year. We are getting an Evo kit on that car as well for next season, which I know you and I talked about past episodes. It seems crazy.
Yeah.
But next year will be
third year.
So it's only the third. Well, it's only the third year. Usually, I think they would go 3 and then have an Evo in the fourth year. But certainly not slowing down any effort with that program from Ford, and they've also mentioned that they plan to continue running with that car after they get the prototype LMDH car on track as well. So they've really picked up the steam this year. Yeah, that's right. They've picked up the steam this year. I think continuing that pace next year could look at them as a real championship contender, although it's still really too early to say anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a nice second year of that program, right? I think both of the Fords have picked up a win. because one of them won Detroit and one of them won the Rolex.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're Ford and looking at the calendar that's on the IMSA schedule, that's kind of like the two ones that you really want, right? You want the biggest race in the sport, and you want the race that's in your backyard and in the shadow of GM's headquarters at that. So, I think I know that they'd want to be competing for a championship, but it's a pretty darn successful season in a second season for the Mustang. But see what if this Evo kit, we've seen a lot of these in recent years, has been, improving the drivability of the car and making sure that they can keep the car in that optimum window for longer over the course of a run. So see how Ford can further improve that Mustang. But I think to bring this back to silly season, Ford's not going anywhere, right?
No. Also, expecting we'll see a new BMW M4 GT3 on the grid next year in GTD Pro, run by Random Vandals Racing. If that name sounds familiar, they are racing that car right now over in GT World Challenge America. Currently racing 2 cars over in that championship. Sounds like only one is expected full-time in IMSA next year if they do make that step over. Although a second car is possible for the Michelin Endurance Cup races. Would be definitely a lot of fun to see a new team running that BMW in the GTD Pro class. I would expect that to be alongside the entries we already have from Paul Miller Racing. And the other thing I have to say is the livery on that car is phenomenal. So, be a fan of that, if nothing else.
It's becoming a zoo in the paddock, especially in GTD Pro. You have Rexy and you have Spike. And then Pfaff has occasionally their dinosaur. Brian is his name.
Who's making these names, man?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the Random Vandals raccoon mascot's called though. But that thing is big. Like that raccoon is big. So I guess it's a city raccoon for sure. But everybody I talk to about Random Vandals is like, oh yeah, this is like the worst kept secret in the grid or in the paddock that they're coming, or that they were doing this. So good to see them taking the jump up, and GTD Pro is no joke, and they're a very solid team. So going to be look forward to seeing what they can do there.
Yeah, and going down the rest of the grid, this is what I would call, I haven't heard anything one way or another, but we'll just run down the list anyways. Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller. Call it a lock. They're not going anywhere. As I mentioned, I don't expect to see any change from Paul Miller Racing. Certainly would hope not. They are a consistent team for championship contention in that class. And if nothing else, they're a lot of fun to watch at the Rolex. Lexus, we're expecting to see the debut of, I don't know if it's officially named, but the LFR GT3 next year in the GTD Pro class by Vassar Sullivan. That car has been on track testing for like 2 years now.
I think they've been doing a lot of testing here now as well.
Yeah, so expecting to see a car, at least one car in the GTD Pro class next year for that program, potentially the other one over in GTD as we have right now. AO Racing, I don't really see any reason why they would leave GTD Pro. The marketing behind that car right now is phenomenal. And I don't see them stepping up to GTP next year right now. So in my eyes, that program is safe. Dragon Speed, I guess this one's a little bit questionable, just because we don't really know the full story with that program. But what I would expect, if nothing else, is they're looking to continue their form from this season, which I've talked about countless times has been extremely impressive and far stronger than I'd expected it at the start of the season. And that only really leaves Pfaff, which I know that's your home team. I don't know if you've heard any things that I haven't, but they've had a bit of a tough season with that Lamborghini. haven't really been on the championship form that they used to be on with Porsche for a couple of years now. Really, honestly, ever since they left Porsche. But for one way or another, I haven't heard too much about that program. So hoping that we don't see any negative things for that.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so as well. I guess the real question mark there it would be, does Lamborghini and the SC63 effort going away? How could this impact FAF? Because my understanding is that the FAF program is, kind of partially supported by Lamborghini and then partially supported by just FAF sponsors. So I wonder if that could help them in a good way, or if it could mean that Lamborghini further pulls back. But I don't know. I think with the new Temerario coming next year,
did we finally get the pronunciation?
I don't know. I'm just going to call it the Temerario.
I think that was right.
Well, I'm just going to do it until people yell at me in the comments that it's wrong. So, which knowing the internet, it'll probably happen at some point, especially if I'm saying it wrong. But with the Temerario coming around, I would think that Lamborghini would be eager to make sure that they're represented in the highest class of GT3 racing in North America with that car. Arguably the highest class of pro GT racing in the world. But that's probably that's an argument for a different day. But yeah, I think I have a hard time thinking that FAF would be going anywhere. So I'm just going to will that into existence, right? If I just keep saying it, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's usually how it works. Well, in our case, not quite. Nonetheless, we'll move on from that. For GTD,
we're doing our part. We're doing our part.
GTD, this is probably going to be the most difficult one to talk about because this is the only class right now where we don't have a single confirmed entry for next season. Not to say that there's going to be no cars on the grid by any means. I do expect this is going to be a highly represented class in IMSA again next year. And I guess to that question, are there any teams, any full season teams on the grid right now that we don't expect to see for next year?
That's honestly a good question. I mean, we've seen teams that we wouldn't have expected to go away in the middle of the year. So that I don't think that there's any of the heavy hitters like, where Windward I would assume is going to be back. Turner's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, DXDT has been vocal that they're planning on being back. So
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you could look at could the Heart of Racing?
I don't think so.
Back to GT? Yeah,
Ian James back around the Watkins Glen weekend said that they're full intentions to continue that program. So
there we go. So I don't know. With some of the bronze drivers, you never know that. Could they just decide that they don't want to do it anymore? Like the 13, the AWA. It's like, Ori Fidani is he's got that, he has that taste of Le Mans from this year, seems motivated to keep going at it. He's fairly young. I don't see a reason why they would go away. And then you have a bunch of the Ferrari teams, like your Triarci has really taken a step forward this year. So I don't know if there's any that I would circle concerned about, but we honestly never know. This is probably the biggest wild card class of the four, right? Maybe, I don't know, maybe with LMP2. Maybe LMP2
earlier I said I think they're a tie, but
yeah. I guess, yeah. We're not even going to know the full GTD grid until a month before the race because that's just the way the GTD usually goes. But yeah, I don't think we're in any danger of losing any of the sort of staple entries, unless if Vassar Sullivan they only end up running one of the new Lexis next year or whatever. Is it running under the Lexus banner or the Toyota banner?
Well, I'm expecting it's going to be Lexus.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's just kind of a wait and see, which is it's a boring thing to say, but it's probably the accurate thing to say.
Wow, look, I set this whole thing up and I said this is going to be the first episode we really dive into all of this. There's probably going to be more. So
Yeah.
lots of GTD uncertainties to discuss in the future. If we want to shift gears, though, there's a lot to talk about in the hypercar class of the
Yeah.
WEC right now. Primarily because this is the one area where we have seen confirmed driver swaps. We, of course, have a new manufacturer coming in with Genesis next year. And I guess I'll start with that. It's an easy one to start with. Start with the good news. Of course, we'll be seeing that 2-car program from Genesis Magma Racing next year with the GMR 001. Confirmed drivers that we do have for that program. Actually, 2 of them were announced either yesterday or today. Andre Lauder, Pipo Derani, Danny Juncadella, and Mathis Jobert. Jobert, by the way, would be, to my knowledge, the youngest driver to have ever driven a hypercar. If I'm not no, you know what? Timon Vanderhelm.
I was just gonna fire that. Yeah.
But 20 years old, I believe, for Jobert right now.
Oh no.
Well, Time is what, 21, and he's been racing since 23. So
Is he 21?
I think so.
God.
Yeah. How do you feel now?
I don't like it.
Anyways, those are the 4 drivers we have confirmed for 2026 right now.
Born in 2004.
That's right.
Oof. I'm old.
So to confirm, it is 21, right? It's not like December 2004.
Yeah, no. It's January 26th, 2004.
Okay. Going back to Genesis here. There you go. That's the first sidetrack of the episode. I'm expecting, or at least we're hearing, that we're probably going to see Stoffel Van Dorn joining that team as well after departing from the Peugeot 9X8 program. And also hearing that Paul-Luc Chatin is also likely going over to that program. That would be the full 6. What we don't know yet right now is whether or not Genesis is going to do 2 or 3 drivers for the full-time approach next year. It's possible that 2 of those drivers remain in reserve/endurance roles. We do know that IMSA program is coming up the following year, so maybe some of those drivers are just sitting on the sidelines for next year, waiting for that IMSA program to come along. But those are the 4 we have confirmed right now, and the 2 we have heavily rumored. I think the full picture is at least in place for that WEC program for next season.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know if you had anything to add to that or not, but sounds like I covered it.
Yep, you did.
Mentioned Paul-Luc Chatin leaving Alpine. That sort of brings us to what does Alpine's picture look like for next season. We've also heard that Ferdinand Habsburg is not yet confirmed to return, although that's not to say that he won't necessarily return. It's just unlikely. It's unknown right now, rather. The one that is unlikely is Mick Schumacher. Seems to be pursuing alternative options right now. We saw his name come up around the Cadillac Hertz Team Jota program to replace Jenson Button. There was a possibility that could have been alongside a Cadillac F1 reserve driver role. All of that seems to have fallen apart by now, and looks like he might be going to McLaren for 2027 in that hypercar program. Whether that includes a McLaren F1 reserve driver role or not too sure right now, but Mick Schumacher does seem to be pursuing any option possible that gets him back into F1. So not really sure. I don't know if the F1 dream has sailed for him or not, but he didn't really see that path forward with Alpine, it seems. And so he's looking for a different way to move forward. Again, sounds like it's going to be McLaren for 2027 for him.
Don't leave, Mick. Don't leave.
Don't leave sports car racing, at least. If you want to go to a different manufacturer in sports car racing,
sure,
that's all right. Your mic might have cut out, so I'll give you a second to do some investigating on that. Looking like we'll also be seeing Antonio Felix da Costa returning to the WEC full-time next year. Of course, he used to be part of the Hertz Team Jota Porsche 963 program, stepped aside, or rather got sort of pushed aside to go join Porsche's Formula E factory program. All things right now point that he'll be departing the Formula E program and moving back to the WEC for Alpine next year. Question I have is, what does that mean for their driver lineup next year? Are they going to go with a 2-driver lineup for 2026, or are they going to try to pull in additional drivers for that third seat? Right now, I have to look at the full list. I mean, Charles Malaysia is going to be continuing with that program. Fred McAveek is going to be continuing with that program. I think they have, for all intents and purposes, 5 drivers who are set up for next year, which I guess just leaves the 6th. So I'm not sure. To me, if they're only at 5 right now going into next year, and they don't have a 6th driver lined up, it makes more sense to just do a 2-and-2 program and then have that an extra driver that you can have as a reserve for either car if needed. But of course, then you still need to pull somebody in for that second car for the endurance race. Or the endurance races, plural, because we're looking at Qatar, Le Mans, and Bahrain. So questions, though, still to be answered for Alpine right now, I think.
Yeah, maybe give Felipe Fraga a call.
There you go. Our advice is free, but not necessarily good, but it is free.
If you want to pay us, though, then that's okay too.
We'll take your check. Also, continuing with where that leaves other drivers, mentioned some of the changes that will be happening with Cadillac, of course, with Jenson Button departing. We also have some confirmations from that 9X8 program this year already recently that were made. Teo Porcher will be joining the 94 car starting at Bahrain this year, replacing Stoffel Van Dorn. And Nick Cassidy was also confirmed to be joining that program for 2026. So that means 2 drivers are out in that program and 2 drivers are in. Well, we already have confirmation that Stoffel Van Dorn is going to the wayside or potentially going to the papaya side. Gary Watkins from motorsport.com was reporting that Mikkel Jensen also looks certain to leave for McLaren in their 2027 program, along with potentially Malte Jakobsen, who, mind you, just joined that car in an actual race role this year after stepping up from a reserve driver role. Looks like McLaren might be trying to scoop him up as well, but don't know if that would be for next year or for 2027 that he would be out of the 9X8 seat.
McLaren's pretty good at snagging drivers, aren't they? And it doesn't matter what motorsport discipline it is.
Well, they're the big shiny thing right now, and they've also got not a shortage of money. So
that's true.
So
drivers will go where they can get a safe check.
Yes. Yeah, so for next year, I'm still not sure what the 9X8 program is going to look like fully. Whether or not we have Malte Jakobsen still part of that car for next year or not. But with the departure of Mikkel Jensen and Stoffel Van Dorn, both seemingly going to McLaren, interested to see what other changes occur over at the Peugeot camp. They have been expressing a long-term commitment to that program, likely not with the 9X8 itself, but potentially with a new car that's in the pipeline. So I don't see any indication that they're going to be winding down. Over on the Cadillac side, because I was talking about Jenson Button departing. We already mentioned that Mick Schumacher was allegedly talking about going into that role, but those talks have since died out. I think if there's one driver you can point at right now that's probably going to be set for that role, it would be the return of Callum Ilott. He raced with Hertz Team Joda in the 963 program. Spent a year going over to IndyCar for the Prema program that they have there. That program looks unlikely for next year. I mean, I'm not really on the inside for IndyCar, so I don't know how likely that program is or not, but I don't think that program's coming back for next year. So things right now are pointing to Callum Ilott returning to the team for the first time in the Cadillac, though. But familiar place for him, a seat that he's actually won in at the 2024 6 Hours of Spa, and would be nice to see his return.
It would. One of the things that I was kind of just thinking of here is that, a lot of these manufacturers, they have their kind of young up and coming drivers, right? Maybe not up and coming, if you're driving in hypercar or GTP, you kind of made it at that point. But they have like some younger drivers in the stable to sort of build the future, build the program around a little bit. Who does Cadillac really have in that role, kind of right now? I know in IMSA, you could point to some drivers. Was it Jack Aiken?
Yeah, maybe Jack Aiken. Or
it's who was I? Louis Delatraz, still fairly young as well. I mean, you could look at the Taylors aren't exactly old, but WEC side, who's kind of the young gun on that team in that program? Like, do they?
Well, I mean, they do. Of all the lineups in the WEC right now, I guess you could say they have the most veteran lineup, right?
Yeah. I would say
so. No, even Genesis isn't going to be fighting them next year, because I was going to say Lauderer has been around sports car racing for well over a decade at this point, and Durrani even sort of burst onto the scene in 2016, so he'll be up on his 10th year, or 11th rather. But no, going back to Cadillac Joda right now, they've of course got Earl Bamber, who you can't think of Earl Bamber as an old driver by any means.
I know.
He's just so experienced, though, that it seems like he's a lot older than he is. Sebastian Bourdais, of course, he's been around the scene for multiple decades at this point, even way back to the Peugeot 908 program. I think he first debuted at Le Mans in 99. Actually, it was 99 was his first year racing there. So longer than I've been around. He's been in the sports car racing ranks. But to sort of argue your point, I don't know if having a young driver program really matters in sports car racing. At least in prototype racing. And I'll say that because, I mean, how long are these programs around even?
Look at Porsche. Look at the pipeline that Porsche's built, though.
Oh, so you're talking specifically factory drivers, not necessarily prototype drivers.
Yeah, I would probably make the argument. You could make the argument for the factory, yeah.
Well,
or the program.
Well, in program terms, Porsche hasn't been around for long. They've been around for 2 years.
Yes, but they have a consistent pipeline of young drivers that are coming up. I mean, like a lot of the drivers that they have, maybe some of them went away for a couple of years. Like Tandy went and ran.
He was in Corvette.
Yeah.
Well, Porsche's advantage is they have scale. They have Porsche Carrera Cup.
Yeah.
They have the largest GT racing scene of anybody in the world. So they have no shortage of places to put these drivers. And of course, if you have a series like Carrera Cup, a lot of those drivers are going to be young, up-and-coming drivers. Look at a guy like Seb Prio. I know he's not a Porsche driver anymore, but Multimatic picked him up.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where the talent pool is for young drivers in sports car racing right now.
But if you're a Cadillac, do you not think at some point they're going to have to go and they need to get some younger drivers at some point, right? That they can develop integrate into the team.
It depends how long the program's going to be around. Unless you
I
want
suppose.
to pick up some GM factory drivers and then say you have drivers you can put into a Corvette, or even over a NASCAR or any, GM's racing program are very diverse themselves.
Yeah.
But
No, I just thought it was interesting that we see names like Malte Jakobsen, very very young driver, has been highly regarded for a few years, and it just kind of got me thinking. Cadillac doesn't really have anyone on the WEC side that they've kind of latched onto as kind of that young driver that could be their pillar in a couple years. So yeah, I mean it's not that it couldn't change, but I just thought it was interesting.
well, I'll tell you what, McLaren has incentive for a young driver in the WEC.
Yes,
and it's to place them as a reserve driver in Formula One, or simulator
Cadillac,
driver even in Formula One. I know Cadillac, you can make the exact same argument, but I don't think that it's a necessity
yeah,
for them to find young drivers that are going to replace the guard of somebody like Bourdais.
yeah,
And Jenson Button, he's stepping down right now, and they're finding somebody to replace him. And a young driver himself, Callum Ilott, is certainly a driver who's relatively young in the sports car racing sphere.
yep,
But no, I mean, for McLaren's definitely approaching this very strong from the start. I think they're a little bit different because they have enormous resources right now. There is incentive for them to pick up some driver in a sports car racing program who then maybe they can use towards their F1 program. Again, maybe that's just a simulator driver, but
yeah,
Sebastian Buemi is still a Red Bull Racing F1 reserve driver. They don't call him up to go race the car, but shows you that there's still definitely interest in taking some of these sports car racing drivers and bringing them over to programs where they might be able to be part of a huge F1 effort that's consists of many drivers, most of them you don't even see on track.
yeah, yeah,
Those are just my thoughts on it, at least.
yeah, yeah. We should probably move on from Cadillac though before we.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing a lot of word soup here. There's a lot of drivers switching around so much. I should probably make a rip off my friend Kyle, who over on his show that he does with David Land and Tony D. He made a diagram of all the IndyCar driver moves that are going on right now to make it clear. I guess for future episodes, I'll have to rip them off and do something like that.
Except your diagram is going to be the whole wall. It's
well, I got 4 classes and IMSA to worry about and 2 in the WEC. It's not just 26, 28 cars in IndyCar.
It's gonna be like that GIF, where all the strings and pins on the wall.
It's actually out of frame, but I do have a cork board in the background. Maybe I'll have to dig it out and get the string out. Get
Perfect.
Some yarn.
Next week on the Rain Race podcast, Chris gets the cork board out.
I'd love it. Listen, get some thumbtacks, get some yarn, get the pointer stick. We'll have a show.
Yep.
Anyways, that's the second time. 3 strikes, we're out of here.
Uh-oh.
I haven't heard much right now on the other programs in the WEC. Again, for better or for worse, I don't really expect many changes for Aston Martin, BMW, Ferrari, or Toyota for 2026 at least. Toyota seems safe with that program through the end of the 2026 season. I know there have been some questions raised about the future of it. Beyond that, potentially they want to migrate down a hydrogen route. We don't know if hydrogen is ready. So that's for a year from now. For right now, everything looks safe for those 4 manufacturers. In fact, Ferrari just signed an extension, multi-year deal for Nicholas Nielsen, of course, driving in car 50 in the factory 499P. The only car, I guess, out of all of those, I'm not fully certain about is the 83 Ferrari. I do know they're coming back next year, although I have seen some questions thrown around about the driver lineup for that car, whether or not it changes again as it did going into the 2025 season. But I haven't seen anything substantial about that yet, so not really much for me to talk about. Which brings us back to the ultimate question that we had from IMSA and the future of Porsche. Since the last episode that we had, there have been some uncertainties called into whether or not Porsche will be continuing with that program, specifically in the WEC next year. Let me give you what I know from people with more inside knowledge than me. Graham Goodwin had reported that during the week of the 6 hours of COTA, that all of the manufacturers present, along with Acura, and some representatives from the ACO, and I believe John Doonan was there as well, had a roundtable discussion with the manufacturers and discussed what they want to see for the future of the hypercar / LMDH formulas, whether or not we go to a single formula for the 2030 regulations, and more immediately what the balance of performance looks like in the WEC for next year. I believe there was also a follow-up meeting the following Friday, again with the same parties involved, to discuss in more detail. The other thing I can tell you is that Porsche is not happy with the way that balance of performance has been handled this year in the WEC. We're under its third iteration right now in 3 seasons. We've talked about that in a previous episode. Toyota, every single race, makes it very vocal that they are not pleased with the current BOP system right now in the WEC either. They have very low faith in its ability to balance the cars properly. And ultimately, they haven't picked up a single win in the WEC this year. What I see those 2 meetings as, to be honest with you, it's pure speculation, but those seem like emergency meetings to me, where you have multiple manufacturers who are not happy with the current system that we have in place. They are not confident in the future direction that these regulations are going to bring us, and they want answers, and they want answers fast. For Porsche, that matters because they haven't secured confirmation from upper management on whether or not the WEC and IMSA programs will be able to continue for next year. And if they need to make cuts, Thomas Laudenbach has made it vocal, at least right now, that the WEC program is not favored over the IMSA program, which to me, honestly, a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
They've won everything they need to win over in IMSA right now. They've won the championship. They've won Sebring. They've won Daytona. They've hit the big ones, at least.
Mm-hmm.
What they haven't won is the 24 Hours of Le Mans. They won the WEC championship last year, in the Drivers' Championship at least, but they did not win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And they've come very close now for the past 2 years. So, to me, if they do drop the WEC program for next year, that comes as a big surprise. I think that's the last box they have to check off the list. But the other thing to know is that a WEC program is more expensive than IMSA. This is a 8-race world championship right now, potentially increasing in the future, although not for next year, which would further increase costs. And the logistics of it are a lot more difficult than running a, let's call it a national championship with IMSA. So that's where we are for now. As I said earlier, would be expecting to hear more from that during the Fuji weekend or before the Fuji weekend, which is a couple weeks. We'll have a clear picture of what to expect for next year. We also have to talk about Proton. Of course, they're running a 1-car program in the WEC right now with the 963. We talked about them earlier as well when we were talking about IMSA. I don't really know where that leaves Proton right now. I think Proton becomes interesting if the factory car pulls out.
Yeah.
Because what I don't understand, to be honest with you, is from a regulation standpoint, what is Porsche allowed to do? Because there's a 2-car mandate. It's technically for 2 factory cars, but what if there are no factory cars? Well, then Proton has to run 2 cars, or at least they have to have 2 privateer entries in the field, whether one's from Proton and one's from another manufacturer. I don't know beyond that. I don't know if they're allowed to do a 1-and-1. I don't know if they're allowed on the grid, period, if they don't have a factory program. If somebody does have that knowledge, please let me know. But definitely more to come out of this Porsche story.
Yeah. Hope that they don't go away, and that you bring up it's a really good point about Proton. Like, what do they do? What do they do? It would not be a fun spot to be in, and hopefully we're not having to wait too long to get the answers to these questions. Hopefully it doesn't drag on into the off season, and then we can get some answers soon, because it's not a story that I think anybody wants to have lingering over the sport. Andrew Kissinger mentioned in the chat that Porsche also has more prestige than any other brand in enduro racing, and I think that's a very reasonable statement to say.
Yeah.
So losing a manufacturer like Porsche is not something that anybody wants for the overall health of a championship, for a world championship, for the 24 hours of Le Mans. That's not something that anybody wants. So hopefully all of these meetings, whether they're emergency meetings, whether they're whatever meetings they are working towards a resolution, and that we can keep Porsche on the grid, because whether you're a Porsche fan or not, the sport is a better place when Porsche's involved in it.
Yeah. Want to bring up the initial reports there were brought up by Automotor und Sport. Very reputable German publication around the auto space. I'm going to link all of the stories that I have read for notes in this episode in the description or in the podcast notes to go take a look at those yourself. There's a lot in there that's worth looking into. The other question I have, if Porsche did leave as a factory program, does Penske try to step up? Because Porsche has won Le Mans overall 19 times. Penske has not. And Penske has been very clear that their intention with a prototype program right now is to win the 24 hours of Le Mans. I personally believe Roger would trade in WEC championships, IMSA championships, Rolex 24, and Sebring wins for a 24 hours of Le Mans win. He's welcome to tell me I'm wrong, but that's the way I believe. So does Penske, if a scenario like that happens, does Penske try to step up and say, we'll run a customer car? Because I'm sure they can get the backing behind it if necessary. And then maybe Proton runs another car. Maybe Penske says, we'll just try to run 2 cars. I don't know. It's definitely a lot to figure out there.
I am here for a Penske, the Penske Trucking Company yellow Porsche 963. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I know we already have JDC, I guess, that kind of covers the yellow 963, checks that box, but I don't know, that Penske Trucking, yellow with the blue livery is embedded in my head from when I was a child. So I have a soft spot for it.
Yeah.
I need it.
Andrew said, well, Porsche runs one team off Proton, Iron Dames, and one out of Manthey for LMGT3. So Hypercar could be similar, I'd imagine, but it is the ACO. Well, actually, that's not entirely true, because both of those LMGT3 cars are Manthey run. Proton only runs the Iron Dames program over in IMSA.
Okay, I guess you could flip the argument. Aston.
I was going to say Aston's a legit argument there.
Yeah, but does that apply? Racing. Does that apply to Hypercar too?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They might not even know.
I got to read the rule book. Um, well, I guess that's it for Hypercar.
Oh, one more thing with
Sure.
hypercar, because it was probably a little more relevant to talk about with the IMSA segment of this. But where do we think Lamborghini's drivers go? They have a handful of drivers, a small handful of drivers that have been, for the SC63 program. You have Kvyat, you have Grosjean. I know Grosjean, I think, is rumored he wants to go back to IndyCar.
Yeah.
Could you see Kvyat stick around in some prototypes? You have Mortara as well, that, jumps ship from Audi and now is having another manufacturer that's kind of that's shifting. Maybe he sticks with Lamborghini and just goes back to more GT3 racing. You got to imagine that there's some of the other factory drivers were existing, like Caldarelli was an existing driver of theirs. So you got to think that they're probably going to stick around. But Grosjean, Kvyat, Mortara, could they be possibilities for another program as well? Could be interesting to keep an eye on those names as the offseason rolls on as well.
Yeah, for next year, I'm not sure. There were a few openings that we talked about. I think maybe more likely for 2027. You've got McLaren coming in.
True.
You've got Ford coming in.
Yep.
So there's absolutely no shortage of talent needed for this programs, especially if they double up with an IMSA program as well. I would say probably if they're sticking around in sports car racing, maybe GT3 programs are more likely for them next year. But we'll see.
Yep.
Maybe they go to the Asian Le Mans series too, and they race.
True. I completely forgot. Man, how stupid of me.
Yeah.
The Asian Le Mans series is the most coveted
Caught you
seat
slacking
in motorsport.
Don't make me say that's 3 strikes. We're not going off rails here.
No. This one was just a bit outside.
Yeah. LMGT3. Luckily, I don't have as much to talk about here because we could continue this episode another hour if I had a lot of changes to talk about here. Again, I haven't heard anything really going on in this class, so I'm not expecting any wide-scale changes. Of course, we'll expect the new Lexus to replace the RCF. Expect that Evo kit on the Mustang.
Well, it could be a Toyota there.
I think I've seen the cars being... I'm not sure. I was going to say the car is sort of viewed as an LFA successor, which was branded as a Lexus worldwide. I digress. Either way, Toyota, Lexus, whatever it is. The only entry I'm not 100% certain about is the Manthey Ron Iron Dames entry. I don't know if you had planned on talking about this during the IMSA segment we have coming up here, but Iron Dames has pulled the plug on their IMSA program for the rest of the season. It will not be present at Indy or Petit Le Mans, and the finances around that entire Iron Dames program are in question right now, I'll say. Some of their assets have gone up on auction, and I'm not sure what the future of that program looks like. Now, with it being a Manthey run entry, I would fully expect that Manthey is able to secure sponsorship and start up another program with that car, as they did last year. They had 2 Manthey branded cars on the grid. What it means for the drivers, I'm not so sure. Although certainly it's been a fan favorite entry in the WEC for the past handful of seasons now. So would hope they don't really go anywhere too far.
Did they confirm that they're not doing Petit?
I believe so.
Oh, I didn't see anything on it, so I didn't. I'll still take a look.
Okay.
That makes me sad. I didn't realize that they, if they're not going to be at Petit too, that would suck.
Yeah, and you can sort of draw correlation with the struggles that they're having with the struggles that Prema is having over in IMSA. There's a lot of correlation between those two programs. So, Prema's having over an IndyCar, not an IMSA.
IndyCar, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rough couple of years for Prema.
Yeah. Except for that rogue Indy 500 pole.
Hey, yeah, true. Nice feather in the cap.
I know there's not a lot that I went over, but any thoughts from you on LMGT3 for next year?
Don't think so.
All right.
Don't think
keep
so.
Quick,
Well,
keep
maybe,
oh.
maybe if Iron, hear me out. Maybe if Iron
No.
Dames, no, this is actually reasonable. This isn't that crazy.
All right.
Maybe if Iron Dames doesn't return, we can get like Roxy in the WEC. Now we're talking.
I don't hate it.
Now
I
we're
don't
talking.
hate it because we had AO there in the last year of GTE AM.
Yep.
So not impossible.
Boom. That's more free advice. Well, it's not going to cost us anything. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but you don't have to pay us anything.
Yeah,
let's
I
make
don't
it happen.
hate that idea. You know, and talk about a powerhouse entry at that. If you had a Manti backed AO racing entry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oof.
Be very fun.
Be pretty good. Is it time to talk some IMSA?
It's time to talk some IMSA. You're on the ground, and you are my voice of reason on the ground over there in Indy. You're on the clock. You're still sitting on that uncomfortable stool right now. So
I am. I've been shifting around a little bit, trying to make sure I wear evenly here. So yeah, IMSA, Indianapolis, 6-hour Battle of the Bricks, third year that this has been running. So that is, this is a veteran race, I guess you could call it now. Second year of it being the 6-hour format, and we're going to have 53 total entries on the grid, a few less than we saw last year, which, these things kind of ebb and flow a little bit. We've had a couple of unexpected dropouts in the middle of the season, but still a healthy 53 car grid. This is the most GTP cars we've ever had at Indianapolis at 12. We've also added a couple of LMP2 cars from where we were last year. And then on the flip side, we've lost some GTD Pro cars. We had last year in this race, we still had the Heart of Racing that was running on Aston Martin in GTD Pro. We are getting a Mercedes in the GTD Pro class for this weekend with the Kenny Habul led 75 Express Mercedes. That iconic orange flame returns to the grid for the first time since the Rolex. And then we have 18 GTD entries, which is down from last year. But like I said, things ebb and flow. There's a few entry notes that are notable in this, and some of them we've already talked about. We talked about Proton isn't going to be on the grid. We've actually mentioned Tiemann Vanderhelm. He's going to he sees a new co-driver alongside him this weekend in Nico Mueller for the 85 JDC Miller Porsche 963. In LMP2, you have a driver that, again, we talked about a little earlier. Paul-Loup Chatin is not going to be in the Aero Motorsports LMP2. He's going to be replaced by Ollie Jarvis, who has plenty of LMP2 experience. You're going to hear a lot about Logan Sargent this weekend. It's the big name. You're going to be seeing articles. They're going to be talking about it on the broadcast. Just get ready for it. Logan Sargent is in the 52 PR1 Matheson entry for the final 2 races of the season. So hopefully he can make a good first impression here. And I think he's competed in IMSA previously, maybe, but
I don't think so. He has raced an LMP2 car in the ELMS.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. You have, what else do we have in LMP2? Tom Dillman. Tom Dillman returns after, you remember, he was injured in that accident at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park right at the end of the race when he was leading. So he is back. He's good to go. So that is really good news to see Tom Dillman back in that entry. And then, we talked about GTD Pro getting a new entry. You also have Eduardo Barrichello that's going to be joining the Vandister Racing Aston Martin in GTD. So he is going to be joining, was it Valentino? I'm not going to be able to pronounce the last name. It's the same lineup that they ran in the WEC when they got on the podium in Brazil. So it's a proven lineup. They could be a sneaky little dark horse pick here at Indy. And then some earlier news that we got, I think it was last week or the week before, is Mason Filippi, a name that you might recognize, is jumping into the Gradient Racing Ford Mustang for not just this weekend, but also for Petit Le Mans. He's replacing Tatiana Calderon in that. So Mason competes in the TCR class of the Michelin Pilot Challenge and does a darn good job there. So he's going to be jumping up to the WeatherTech Championship and getting a couple of races in on the GTD side in that Mustang. So there are a lot of grid update or lineup updates. There usually are when we roll around to the Michelin Endurance Cup events. This is, of course, the first Endurance Cup race since the Glen. But yeah, anything really stick out there to you of the long list that I have just mentioned?
I don't think anything out of that list. I don't believe you mentioned, of course, we're getting the return of Lamborghini for their penultimate race in IMSA. They actually brought a Joker upgrade to this race, believe it or not. Mr. Waffles in the chat actually brought that up, and I wanted to talk about that. Yeah, they have an all-new rear suspension on the car for this race, according to SportsCar 365, which I think we talked about that upgrade coming after Watkins Glen. Because it was after Watkins Glen when they announced that program was paused, didn't they? So we knew this upgrade was coming, but nonetheless, interesting that it's coming at this point where we only have 2 races left for that car.
I thought they put a stop to teams bringing mid-season Joker upgrades. I thought there was, or maybe it was just the WEC that did it. But I thought there was something about this, like this time last year, where you could only have Joker upgrades in the offseason. But I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something different. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there were multiple mid-season updates in the WEC last year, so unless they did it for this season,
I think it was meant to be implemented for this year. That there would be no mid-season Joker upgrades. I don't know. I feel like that happened.
I didn't catch it, so
I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat. Chat always keeps us honest. But I mean, clearly, even if that rule did come into place, it's clearly not an IMSA rule because they're allowing them to bring it for this weekend. I don't know. Talking with a few people around this weekend, and as soon as we started mentioning, the uncertainty in the weather, the conversation immediately changed to, well, wouldn't Lamborghini love to see some rain roll in on Sunday? And after the performance that they put on in the rain in this race last year, so I don't know. Maybe if we get a little bit of weather, Lamborghini's going to be able to put that Joker upgrade to good use.
Yeah. And at Watkins Glen as well. They were also leading some laps there.
In the sun. They were leading laps in the sun there, too.
There we go.
It was very sunny.
Yeah, Romain Grosjean was a standout drive last year at this race. It was one of maybe the top 5 IMSA moments from last year.
Yeah.
His drive in the rain, duking it out with the Porsches. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Great to see him run it back. Unfortunately, that race got cut short for them last year. Quickly after that, due to... I forgot what was the issue.
I don't remember what it was either.
I couldn't remember if it was a suspension issue, which would be ironic with the upgrade they have coming this weekend. But
I don't know. They've had so many issues; it's hard to keep track.
Yeah. Well, of course, that was under Iron Link's hands last year.
That's true. With the race this weekend comes a number of storylines or things to watch out for. whatever you want to call them. And there's some really interesting ones. I just touched on some of the uncertainty with the weather. Just keep an eye on the forecast, folks, because it's been changing every day, and who knows what we're going to get come Sunday. It could be hot and sunny, like it is pretty toasty here in Indy for the next couple of days, or we could get some storms that roll through. So obviously that would be a drastically different race, and we've seen what this race is like when it's wet. So I think definitely keep an eye on the weather forecast. The big one, and we kind of alluded to it off the top, though, BMW going for back-to-back wins, not only in the Battle of the Bricks, but also just in 2025 IMSA. Of course, GTPs weren't present at VIR, but they're going to be back. They are back this weekend. And the last round out that they ran was in Road America when BMW had their best performance of the season by far. With that 1-2 finish. And then I was going to say, in this race last year, I would argue that's when BMW had their real first IMSA breakthrough. I know that they won the 6 hours of the Glen when Porsche got disqualified or not disqualified, when they got penalized in 2023. But I would say that this race last year for BMW was their big, coming out party, their big breakthrough. And, can they come here, back up what they just did at Road America? And if they do that, then they could claw their way into the distant discussion for the championship at Petit Le Mans, depending on how Porsche goes this weekend. But if BMW could really come out here and put some pressure on Porsche to really perform this weekend. So BMW is going to be one to keep a very close eye on, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, actually, one of their drivers, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think it was Philip Eng.
I think you're right, yeah.
Quoted by, I think it was SportsCar 365, saying they're still going for it. The championship in their eyes is still a possibility, and the team wants to try to close out that chapter with Team RLL with a championship.
Yep.
It's a long shot, but crazier things have happened. And with Petit Le Mans being a complete uncertainty with how that race ends up going in the final few hours, who knows?
Yeah, we have 16 hours of IMSA racing, WeatherTech Championship racing left this season. It's a lot of racing, and that's only across 2 races. It doesn't take much to make a mistake and go a couple of, even if it's just a small mistake and you go a couple of laps down, like that can really turn a good points day into a not great points day in a hurry. And this is the biggest GTP field that we've had, not only for this race but this season's GTP grid is bigger than we've seen in previous years. So that means there's a bigger point swing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's I'm excited for this weekend. I'm excited to see what BMW can do. I'm excited to see if somebody can step up and put some pressure on Porsche for the championship.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the storylines I'm interested about going into this race, and I talked about this after VIR. Of course, the last race out that we had for all 4 classes on track was Road America. Kind of difficult to remember because it was about 6 weeks ago, but it was a mess.
And we kind of want to forget it.
Yeah, it was a mess. And last race out of VIR, I think our main talking point for you and I was how much IMSA had cracked down on, maybe over cracked down on the driving standards penalties. They were on top of it from lap 1 at VIR. Now, that was a GT only race. They had a lot less cars to actually police. But we've seen some incidents at Indy in the past. We've seen some incidents in turn 1 at the start of the race in Indy. And I'm very interested from the get-go how IMSA is going to handle those. Are they going to continue down the same strictness that they were carrying at VIR? Or are they going to loosen up a little bit again? I think how they manage this race is a very clear picture for what we can expect at Petit Le Mans for the championship decider.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to, much like they set a tone in the early portion of the race at VAR, I think we very well could see them set that tone again early here at Indy. Um, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that drivers' meeting, and and hear what the discussion is. But I would expect that we will see hopefully a cleaner run here in Indy than we saw at Road America, and if not, then I'm sure IMSA will be quick to react.
Yeah.
I guess.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention the GTD Pro fight.
Of course.
It's the closest IMSA WeatherTech championship fight right now. The top two are separated by, I think it's like 51 points or something. It's pretty darn close. So that's going to be, I mean, that's been a great fight to watch all year. You have Corvette leading right now, and Dragon Speed hot on their toes, or hot on their heels, I guess would be the actual phrase there. But yeah, that's going to be a great fight to watch for, and kind of on that same train of thought of close championship fights. One that's kind of flying a bit under the radar heading into this weekend is the TCR championship fight in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. The top three cars there are separated by 30 points, which for those of you who are not necessarily super familiar with the point system, that's 3 positions on track. Three cars are separated by 3 positions or less out on track. So I think if there's don't just tune into the Sunday race, because that Saturday race there is so much to fight for there, and that's been a really good battle, a fun battle to watch all season long. So yeah, and I think that's the closest championship fight in all of IMSA right now.
Yeah, worth tuning into, of course. All right. Any other closing thoughts from Indy? Of course, we're going to be talking about this more next episode. But for now, I think we'll leave it there. Couple messages in the chat. Not really questions, but Andrew Kissinger saying, what happens to the GTD Pro AO entry if they get the Genesis program? Hey, you tell me, bud. All right. I listen, I think there's a team that's more likely to get the Genesis program in IMSA than AO Racing. But we'll save that for another day. Noe Gouda saying, hey guys, I've been following on Spotify. Great to catch the podcast live.
Yeah.
Great to have you here. I've seen you in the chat before, so
yes.
No, it's not your first time tuning out live, but tuning in live. But yeah, great to have you here. If you don't catch us live, of course, as you said, catch us on a podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the big ones. We should be there. If we're not, tell us. We'll make sure it ends up on those platforms. Closing thoughts, man. We got 6 hours of racing ahead for you just in the WeatherTech Championship. Of course, we got support racing action. Handful of support series actually present this weekend to pay attention to. You'll be recapping those things over on your show, Four Doors and GT4, over with Aaron Pfeiffer, I'm sure. And yeah, like I said earlier, looking forward to your content. Enjoy your first time watching a race at IMS. Go in the wrong direction. And we'll leave it at that.
I got one thing to close off on, and it's about Lamborghini, but no. I mean this dead serious. I'm not joking about the Asian Le Mans series this time. I don't know. I have this like a weird feeling about Lamborghini this weekend. The SC63. It's been, I think it's had obviously a very rough. Man, it's gonna sound like an obituary. It's had a very rough life. But I do think that Lamborghini has shown some pace, that they've shown they clearly took a step forward at Watkins Glen. Like they led that race on like they had the pace to lead that race. for that hour or so that they led. They led for like an entire stint. I would not be shocked if we see Lamborghini get their best finish in the WeatherTech Championship this weekend. That's not saying much. That's a 7th place finish that they have to beat. But could we see Lamborghini crack into the top 5? I don't know. I think that there's a reasonable chance that we could see Lamborghini get a top 5 this weekend.
I think top 5. You know what? To be honest with you, I think top 5's calling it safe.
Yeah.
I think Lamborghini could be a podium contender here. It would not be the craziest thing I've seen all year.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
Lamborghini even won this race.
Now you're stepping it up.
Well, I'm being genuine though. I think this was a track where they were strongest last year. They have, let's just mention the thing thou shalt not mention, but they have a pretty solid BOP for this race. And they have that upgrade as well. So, and it would also just make sense, wouldn't it?
Oh, it sure would.
That's generally what happens when programs are at their demise. They win a race, or at least when they're uncertain about their future.
I can hear the social media comments now from people if Lamborghini were to win this race. So,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. We're gonna put our official coveted predictions up over on social media. I'll put a tweet up about that at Rain Race Podcast if you want to go see those pre-race.
Criticize them,
whatever you want to do. We'll give each other some crap next show about it. But I'll leave it at that for now. As I was saying, enjoy first out at Indianapolis, and we'll be back. Can we commit to a Thursday show next week?
I think so.
All right. Next Thursday, normal time, 8 p.m.
Yep, normal time. I won't be in Indy next week, so
to recap all of that.
Unless something really goes south.
Yeah. To recap all of it, did you drive to Indy or fly?
I did drive.
Oh, you drove. Okay.
So I have the 8 hours of stew after Sunday.
Maybe stream it. Maybe people will want to watch.
Oh yeah, in-car camera.
Yeah. Maybe I won't be one of them though. Anyways, next week, 8 p.m., same time, we'll be here to recap everything. We'll be here to recap any news that might drop this weekend. Hope to see you all there. Take care.